Hey everyone, welcome to Reddit Readout. Today we are checking out 2-sentence horror. Story 1. I didn't think much of it when the cashier told me see you later. Until the next morning when I saw a blur of his face running away from my bedroom window. Story 2. They'll never stop trying to look for me, the girl cried to her captor. No, he smiled, wrapping her severed limb in a package addressed to her house. They'll never stop finding you. Story 3. I breathed a sigh of relief when I heard my baby cry after my cesarean. Too bad I missed the part of the consent form saying anything removed from my body during surgery belonged to the hospital. Story 4. I heard a knock on the door, but when I opened it there was no one there. Then I realized the knocking was coming from inside the closet. Be the first to comment. Nobody's responded to this post yet. Add your thoughts and get the conversation going. Story 5. The man locked me in the room with my wife and girlfriend and told me to choose which one dies for $10 million and freedom. I sipped my drink, looking out over the railing into the vast ocean and finding myself grateful for that second bullet. Story 6. I smiled to myself as I looked up at the beautiful lights on Christmas Eve. As my body finally hit the ground and I felt myself slip away, all I could see was the horrified faces of my children in the window. Story 7. As I stared at the emptiness of the night sky, I noticed trails of barely visible clouds stretching across. Staring more intensely, the trailing clouds began to multiply, morphing into waves, and as I began to float, I began to fall. Story 8. Timmy closed his eyes, blew out the candles on the birthday cake and silently wished, I wish every day could be my birthday. Less than 3 months later, his parents watched helplessly as Timmy died of old age in a hospital bed, despite being only 8 years old. Story 9. Honey, I'm still at the office, I've got a lot of work, so I'll see you tomorrow, love you. Said the man that has been following me for the last 30 minutes tonight, as I prepared myself to run. Story 10. A writer's worst nightmare. I think I have writer's block. I'm so scared. Story 11. When a stray animal comes into the vet clinic, it's always been protocol to scan them for a microchip. This particular stray had no chip, however that didn't stop the scanner from beeping when grazing over my hand. Story 12. We drove our car down the dark and lonely country road, stopping suddenly when we saw a deer on the road. It was standing on its hind legs for some reason, and started to bang its head against the window, uncaring about its own safety. Story 13. I discovered that reincarnation existed and I kept the memories of my former lives. That means I get kill my victims in more disturbing ways each time. Story 14. When the canary stopped singing, I worriedly ran over to check on it. The last thing I expected to see was an empty cage, feathers strewn on the floor as a tentacled shadow slithered deeper into the coal mine. Story 15. When I woke up with no memories next to a corpse, I immediately hid the body to maintain my innocence. By the time I remembered who that dead person was to me, the parents of the kid I was babysitting were already unlocking their front door. Story 16. For years I have known that I was living in a dream that I couldn't wake up from. Ignoring my family's pleas for me to get psychological help, I cocked my gun, knowing it was the only way to truly wake up. Story 17. I saw it crawl up the dark basement floor with twisted limbs. I kicked it back down with my boots as it pleaded, "Daddy, please let me out." Story 18. DEC23, I'm so sorry baby, I pleaded, I'll never cheat on you again. I know you won't, she growled, as she pulled the trigger, sending a full load of double-aught buckshot straight into my groin. Story 19. Mum always said I was a brave boy and one day a superhero would save us like in the books. As the villain downstairs came up smelling really bad, I locked my crying mum in her room and stood outside in my Superman costume because I want to be that superhero like him. Story 20. SCP-23, do you think your mother would still be alive when you're already 87 years old? Reminding my patient of this and hearing her sob herself to sleep never gets old, no matter how many times I do it. Story 21. This watch only manipulates the time of the user. Use it carefully. The mysterious man handed me the watch smiling. Edit. A few days later, I stood there, motionless, regretting that I dropped the watch. Thanks to @Quackervolts for the sentence. Story 22. I reach out my hand and begin to cry when my fingers are once again stopped by solid glass. It's been months since I entered the House of Mirrors, yet the haunting music still continues to play, and no one has come looking for me. Story 23. Don't worry man, your family won't know about this. Those words were the last thing I heard from the surface before it charged from the depths towards my mini-sub with ungodly speed. Story 24. To my mother's voice, I awoke for the first time. Then I closed my eyes and went to sleep for the last. Story 25. Why are we hiding from Dad in the wardrobe? He knows I haven't been taking my happy pills, she answered, clutching the kitchen knife tightly. Story 26. Hi sweetie, the baby's still coughing, so my mom told me to give him some warm water with a bit of lemon and honey. I'll let you know if that helps. Call me back when you get this message. Story 27. Ma'am, are you sure that no one else is in the house at this time? Ma'am? Story 28. My first time in a sensory deprivation tank. My biggest fear was getting trapped inside. I hadn't considered the terror of realizing I wasn't alone. Be the first to comment. Nobody's responded to this post yet. Add your thoughts and get the conversation going. Story 29. It's smiling at me. Help. Story 30. My mother told me that I always loved to dance as a kid. As she cut my legs off, with a big grin on her face. A shame you won't be able to anymore. Be the first to comment. Nobody's responded to this post yet. Add your thoughts and get the conversation going. Story 31. I promised my dear son that we would see him very soon. As my feet became bathed with the blood of my wife, I put the gun on the forehead of my daughter. Story 32. I thought the masked figure in the haunted house attraction was scary enough. Then he caught my eye and said, just loud enough to hear, please, help me get this thing off. Story 33. They all assured me that I did all I could and that no one could have saved that girl from the fire. So why does she look so angry, staring at me from the corner of my room every night? Story 34. It's dark outside. Well, that should be a given since it's 2 in the morning. What's that tapping at my window? Story 35. I've spent my entire life ignoring my perverted urges in the hope that I will be admitted into heaven regardless of the horrible intrusive thoughts that plague me. It wasn't until I died and was dragged down, screaming until my throat bled, that I realized God judges human thoughts on the same level as actions. Story 36. I was so excited when my parents told me a famous footballer would be coming to my 15th birthday party. Then the front door opened and Karim Benzema walked in. Story 37. I have been trying to brush my teeth more lately, but it's getting overwhelming. Some of my victims seem to have never flossed in their lives. Story 38. I sat in the waiting room as the agonized screams of my newborn echoed from the operating room. I know it sounds painful, the nurse reassured me, but you do want your child to look like everyone else, right? Story 39. Johnny, get your gun on the run. Hear them calling you and me, every dead man in no man's lands. Be the first to comment. Nobody's responded to this post yet. Add your thoughts and get the conversation going. Story 40. 3 years ago I got pills prescribed to me to cure my paranoid delusions of being monitored. Tonight I accidentally cracked one open and found a microchip inside. Story 41. I can turn back time 10 minutes, but I'd have to wait 10 minutes before doing it again. As soon as I saw the mushroom cloud, I knew I would have to rewind time for all eternity. Story 42. I sighed as the doctor came in with the diagnosis for my heavily bruised arm. He could only muster an "I'm so sorry," as he showed me the clipboard stating chemical necrosis. Story 43. NOV23. My assistant Thomas became lightheaded as we began the autopsy. I don't know how the lad stayed awake long enough for me to open his skull, but he drifted away soon enough. Be the first to comment. Nobody's responded to this post yet. Add your thoughts and get the conversation going. Story 44. DEC 23 double or nothing, I pleaded, tossing the dice against the back of the stained felt craps table. I slowly held both arms out in front of me and closed my eyes, praying the blade was sharpened recently. Be the first to comment. Nobody's responded to this post yet. Add your thoughts and get the conversation going. Story 45. Someone told me they don't just eat you, they eat the memory of you like time never knew you. At least, I think someone once told me that, I said, twirling the beautiful little bauble of a ring on my finger. Story 46. Destroy bad organisms, preserve good organisms, I repeated to myself as I did my immunity-boosting guided meditation this morning. Imagine my shock as reports of millions of mysterious deaths worldwide have continued to pour in throughout the day. Story 47. I was so worried that my daughter would embarrass me by telling everyone that I had locked her up for wanting to marry a penniless lawyer. So I did not release her from captivity even when the lawyer passed away a decade later. Story 48. Man losing control of my car and driving into that cinder block wall almost killed me. Now if only I could find my way through these yellow linoleum hallways and flickering lights. Story 49. In the frost-laden expanse of Level 2 TWO, my misguided words about Level 71 invoked the wrath of the fallen angels. With eyes ablaze and wings unfurling, they descended upon me, orchestrating a macabre finale in the silent depths of the shady grey. Story 50. Her parents were blissfully unaware of the boy who had spent the night with their daughter. Through her blood-soaked restraints and deep incisions, she wished she could say the same. Story 51. It always makes me anxious when someone has a 5% charge left on their phone. I mean, yeah, it's not like they can ever outrun me after I shoot them in the leg, but what if one somehow made it out of the woods ahead of me and had enough charge left to call for help? Story 52. They say sleep paralysis is mostly harmless. But as I try to flip myself onto my back without success, I must disagree. Story 53. I jokingly told the surgeon that she could take whatever she wanted. It was supposed to just be a minor surgery, so I wasn't expecting to see a nurse coming towards me with a permanent marker just before everything went black. That's all for today. Please don't forget to like and subscribe.